You too.
Thanks so much for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Watching The Hobbit last night, the early scenes in particular just looked like complete chaos to film. How was it when you were with everyone else together, being directed by Peter Jackson?
Well, it was interesting because what we were lucky about when we shot the beginning of the film was actually what we shot at the beginning of filming. We'd been together for quite a few months. Sort of doing our training and our work together and our rehearsing and our kind of waiting around. I mean, if we were prepared well for anything, it was waiting around, which happens a lot. But yeah, the first day when we got together, the 13 dwarves and Gandalf and Bilbo in that little set, looking at each other, it was, in retrospect, and increasingly in retrospect, it was really quite a moving and rather wonderful kind of sight. But then the chaos that followed with the scene itself, with trying to work in this very restricted area, was tough. But it prepared us for the rest of the unexpected journey. But it was, I think we'll always look back on that as being the most valuable and it just meant so much to us to be together in that place,
And how did they differentiate you? Because when you begin, you've got all these books, and they all sort of pile in, and then you have your key lines almost to kind of establish yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I think it's an important point. The challenge of taking the dwarves off the page, in which very few of them sort of have a kind of a hugely developed character in the book, to take that off and for Peter and Fran to find these individual characters, these individual looks, because we all look so different, but to find different characters and different character journeys for them all, I think was a huge challenge for them. But by the time we got to filming, I think we were all pretty sure about what we wanted to do, who the character was. I mean, I think, they wanted me to bring a lot of my own Irishness to the character, so it was. That was one of the challenges, but one of the treats about of playing the movie was trying to find where the character goes.
And all the different chemistry and camaraderie between you all that must have grown as the films went on.
No, absolutely. I mean, again, I think that's absolutely right. The dynamic between the dwarves was matched by the dynamic between the actors playing the dwarves. We as actors, we came from all over the world, really, to do this, to the kind of the bottom of the world, to this kind of weird little world of Peter Jackson's Middle Earth, which he kind of somehow creates rather magically, and away from the studios and away from what the normal perception of that world would be. He creates it down in New Zealand, and we got together and we spent a lot of time together. We worked together, we played together, we lived and laughed together, and it was tough at times, but for the most time it was pretty amazing.
And you got to wear a rather fine hat as well.
I never want to see that hat again. I mean, I am going to see that hat again. I go back in May, and it's funny, since I am, because I'd never been in a movie. Well, I don't know who's been in a movie this size. There aren't many bigger movies in a way, but the amount of letters I get about from kids and stopped on the street by kids going, "Oh, I love the hat," and we've got the Lego piece and the hat, and Bofur's hat is the amazing thing.
A little Lego piece.
Yeah. And what I love most about the Lego piece is that my revenge to the Hobbit is that little Lego piece where I've got a detachable head and detachable hat, that's going to be jammed up the noses of 3-year-olds all over the world for...
every actor's dream, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I went into the business.
The tone of it is very light, especially compared to Lord of the Rings. And I'm thinking, as the films go on and the situation becomes more desperate, are we going to expect that tone to change?
I have to say you're asking all the right questions, because that's exactly right. I think tonally it was bound to be different from the Rings, and I am no Tolkien expert, and having spent 18 months in The Hobbit, I'm even less of a Tolkien expert, but I think absolutely tonally it will change. I mean, I can't wait for 2, because I know what happens, and I think it certainly gets darker. I think the journey becomes more dark and developed, and that's really what it's about, because now we're on the road. I mean, at the end of the first movie, we've just got to the top of that cliff thing. Oh yeah, I know my Tolkien. But no, tonally I think it's very, very dark and scary and fascinating, and it is what Tolkien, I think, and Jackson create brilliantly, the next one, which is just sort of unexpected characters, monsters, fear, excitement. It's many colours, I think.
And the last question is, you said you go back in May. Is that for what purposes? Like for reshoots, or is that for more?
We're just doing a bit more filming. I mean, we have. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say that we haven't filmed the Battle of the Five Armies yet, which is, of course, the climax of the movie. And and I think what's interesting about Peter, and whether he does it consciously or not, I don't know. I mean, you never know with him because he's, Peter Jackson is a down to earth genius. It's a very odd marriage. But in the same way that we started filming, our first day of filming was in Bag End, all seeing each other for the first time. I think probably our last day filming of The Hobbit, which could be in 15 years for all we know, will be with the end of the movie and the battle.
That's a nice little circle, isn't it?
Yeah, well, he's very good at those. I think he's made some money doing that kind of cyclical thing.
I think you could be right. Thank you so much.
My great pleasure.